Good evening and welcome to tonight's event hosted by Wyndham Libraries in partnership with Lantern Ghost Tours. My name is Bettina and I would like to acknowledge the Bunurong people as the traditional custodians of the lands on where we meet today here at Point Cook. We acknowledge their neighbours, the Bunurong people of the Kulin Nation. We pay respects to ancestors and elders who always have and always will care for the country and community today and for future generations. To start with some housekeeping, this event is being live streamed and recorded. We ask everyone to keep any noise and chat to a minimum, please, to ensure that those at home can hear our guest. Please place your mobile phones on silent, and if you need to use the toilets, a staff member will guide you to where they are. It is now my absolute pleasure to welcome our guest presenter, Lisa from Lantern Ghost Tours, multi-award-winning Australian ghost tour operator. Tonight, you will hear tales of haunted places, ghosts and spirit sightings in Point Cook and surrounding areas. There'll be time for some questions at the end of the talk, and also to share any interesting stories that you may have. So please now make welcome Lisa. Thank you, Lisa.
Thanks, folks. Thanks, Bettina. Appreciate it. How are we feeling? So, guys in the back, you don't want to come forward because you're scared, or we just? Yeah, you're good.
Yes.
Welcome, everyone. As Bettina said, my name is Lisa. I work for Lantern Ghost Tours. Ghost Tours is a different tour company altogether. We're actually from the Ghost Tour Company. And so a little bit about me. I am one of what we call a ghost host, so I will take the tours. I'm also a paranormal investigator and a psychic medium, and I'm doing a mediumship demonstration for a group in the UK on Tuesday, which is by the magic of Zoom, which is wonderful. Myself and Jackie Travalia from Lantern Ghost Tours as well have published a short story, which is a fictional story about ghosts called Dear Chloe, about the hauntings at Young Jackson's. So we like it. They're good. We like it. I saw my own spirit at the age of 10, and that spirit appeared to me as a full-bodied, full-colour 3D person. I didn't actually know that person had died until I saw a photo of the deceased person and realised that, yes, that was a spirit. So they don't have to just be an apparition. They may be sitting right next to you. Do you know these people? No? Do you know if they're real? Do you want to give a stranger a poke? See what happens. Cool. All right, no one's disappeared. So this is good. Who's seen a ghost? Oh, we've got them all huddling in one group. That's interesting, isn't it? So you guys have seen? Anyone believes in ghosts? Yeah, so most of you. Awesome. Might share some stories later too. So who doesn't believe in ghosts? All right, come on, you can put your hand up. It's not like I'm asking if you're a smoker, right? Yay! So you're here, why? Because your partner dragged you along, or no? Yeah, all good. Well, I do hope you and even the skeptics enjoy the night. So it's also good to know, because we like to know who's going to get picked off first. So, so where am I? So Hauntings of the West. As Bettina said, we're looking at the Point Cook area. Lantern Ghost Tours does mainly do the western area. We do ghost tours in the city as well, in the CBD, and we go as far west as Ararat. So if you want to be locked up in a prison for the criminally insane of a night, yeah, we're the people to talk to. So we do tours at J Ward in Ararat as well, and Pentridge. Otherwise, it's Williamstown, Point Cook, Altona, Amesbury, and Melton. So this is our spiritual home, if you like. A little bit of folklore. The Celtic people believed that the other world, they called it, that's other with a capital O, and there were two worlds that exist side by side in the same place, simultaneously in the same time, but one of them is unseen. So that other world, they called it, was towards the west. So when the ancient Celtic people would bury their people or they would take the body out, it was towards the west. So where the sun sets, if you like, the death of the day. So I don't know if there's something about the west and spirits, but I'm happy to go with that one anyway. And also it's almost Halloween, right? So the other thing the Celtic people believe is it is the time when they talk about the other world, they talk about it as being a thin veil, is the words they use. And at Halloween, the thin veil is at its thinnest. So it's very easy for the spirits of the dead to enter our world, and you're more likely to encounter them at Halloween. So there is a belief that the idea of dressing up as a ghost at Halloween was to trick the real spirits into thinking you were one of them, so they'd leave you alone and not scare you. So yeah, there you go. So you can not be scared for the next week if you want to dress as a ghost, or if you want to be scared, then all good. Because you look fabulous, by the way. You're a good looking bunch, actually. I think you're the best looking bunch we've had since the last one. Right. So, so I've brought along some Halloween things just because it is, and I've also brought along a couple of things for you to look at. I can show you some paranormal investigation equipment, just a couple of examples there, and we've got some photos that we can show you a little bit later as well. And I think there's some time at the end for some Q&A if you'd like to ask a few questions. All good? Awesome. Okay, so we're in the library, right? So libraries are, you know, books, right? Well, they're actually ghosts as well. So Altona Library is haunted. And I believe I've heard from the guys here that Werribee Library is haunted as well. And the lady who appeared at Werribee Library also appeared in full embodied form. So again, how do you know, kind of thing. Altona Library is actually built on the site of, and I'll talk about Altona Homestead in a moment, but it's built on the property of the original homestead, whereabouts the bakery and the butchery was, and the stables was nearby as well. So we think the man, we see a man who haunts Altona Library, is probably one of the workers that used to work in those outbuildings, and he would go towards the back of the homestead, the servants area. You guys familiar with Altona Homestead? Yeah, of course. So there's a road just at the back of the homestead. Like I said, I'll talk more about that later. And the street between is where the library's on the other corner. So there is a pedestrian crossing just between the library and the back of the homestead. And that's where we've seen this man, and he was described as being wearing baggy clothes, and he was shuffling across the pedestrian crossing. Just like that. Do you want to say it again? But he didn't think this talk was going to come with movement, right? So, a driver one night was coming along and nearly hit him, and actually had to swerve and nearly hit the pedestrian light pole. And when you wind down the window to have a go at the person, as you do, right, the man had disappeared. So we do believe he is a residual haunting. We have tried to communicate with him, but we haven't been able to. So we do believe he's actually left an energy footprint, that he's been walking back and forth all that time between the stables or the bakery to the homestead, dropping off his wares and back again, that he's actually left a footprint. We do believe that energy footprints remain. So in terms of the way we work at Lantern, we do take it quite seriously. So we'll hear a story of a haunting, and we will go and investigate. So we have paranormal investigators, we have mediums, and we try and communicate with the spirit. We try and detect the spirit and communicate it with. If we can get a name, we can get some details, and we can then do the research, and we can tell the story on the tours. So that's why we call him a residual haunting, because we were not able to communicate with him. So we don't call him, if you like, an intelligent spirit in that room, eh? Like even in the afterlife, we're kind of judging it anyway. So that's just the language we use. Have you guys ever had a gut feeling that something isn't quite right? Yeah, every time, often. Or you walk into a room and you just think, oh my God, what's happening here? It's like someone's had an argument and you can just feel the tension in the air. And you might think that's quite normal, and it is, but we actually call that psychic ability. So you got that? You got a lot of that? No? Yeah, cool, awesome. What am I thinking right now? Oh, yeah, all right, okay. So you've heard the clairs, right? Clairvoyant. So clairvoyant is specifically, it means clear sight. So if you are clairvoyant, specifically you can see spirit. So a lot of psychics call themselves clairvoyants, and that's fine too. I don't mind the general use of the term, but the purists will say it's someone who can see spirit. There's one then called clairaudient, which is you can hear spirit. So you might have heard some footsteps. Anyone heard footsteps? Yeah. Or sometimes pictures banging on the wall or shuffling of a chair, like noises. You can also hear words in your head. And this is a strange phenomenon. If anyone's experienced this, suddenly a word pops into your head and it's like a message. It is like a message from spirit. You know that's not your thought. You know you didn't think that word up because it comes out of the blue and it makes no sense to what you're thinking at the time. So that's what we call a voice inside your head, and we call that clairaudient. The medical profession says if you hear voices, there's something else going on, but we like to call it psychic. So that would be clairaudient. You hear the footsteps or you hear a voice inside your head. The other one is clairsentience, and that's the gut feeling. That is what we believe the psychic energy that most people have, the ability. So it is, I don't feel quite right now. There's something kind of wrong with this place. It is sentience, the senses means feeling. It could also be that you feel that there's been somebody sitting on the bed. Have you had that experience? Anyone had that? Yeah, you guys had, yeah. And it's, you can't deny it. It's not like you've rolled over because you didn't roll over. There it is. It's a depression on the bed, and sometimes it leaves a mark, and you know that somebody else has sat there. I've got a spirit cat at home. I can feel the walking along the bed, which is kind of cool. That's yeah. So that's clairsentience. So you might have that actual feeling. Being half asleep and someone's whacked you on the head and it wasn't your partner. Maybe it was your partner, one of your kids, I don't know. But that feeling of being touched when you're half asleep is clairsentience. Feeling like if you're in a haunted area and your hair's being pulled, someone's tugging at your clothes, you're feeling like something's just grabbed your leg. They're all what we call clairsentience. Please don't dismiss them, because we believe that is a message. Just because you haven't seen it doesn't mean you haven't been in touch with it. There was one night, and I'll talk about Williamstown too, but we went into the old morgue one night, and as we're talking, there was a guy like about 3 people down from me over here, and he screamed, and then a second later I screamed. I'm supposed to be. Just because we're ghost hosts doesn't mean, by the way, we're brave. I just want to clear that up right at the start. I am a coward. So I screamed at the same time, and we both had the same experience. It is like I've been swimming in the ocean and you feel that a blue bottle sting around your leg, that kind of sting. We both had a sting, our legs, and twisted around our leg at the same time inside the morgue. When he went out and he lifted up his leg, he had a cut on his leg, so it left a welt. I was all right. I didn't have, yeah, but it did help a bit of waxing, so that was good. But yeah, so that is clairsentience. That is an actual feeling that you get. All right, so that's a very quick clairvoyance psychic medium 101 on how it all works. So I just want to say to you guys, if you are interested, it's like a mindfulness in a way. When you go into a place, just start to listen, slow down, feel it, hear it, listen to the whispers of the land, if you like, and you'd be surprised what you pick up. There's an old saying that says things go bump in the night, right? We believe they go bump all the time. It's just that with all the white noise of life going on, you don't hear it. So if we could slow down, you'll start to pick these things up. Hey, so while we're here, yes, we're in Cheetham Street, aren't we? And it's called Cheetham because, yeah, no? Yeah, yes. So we have the Cheetham Salt Works, or Salt Flats, initially it was called, in Point Cook. So you've now got the Cheetham Wetlands, where that area kind of, the whole area is. So a fellow came along and his name was Cheetham, and he started harvesting salt, and he created the Cheetham Salt Company. So this area, this is I think where the story starts, if you like. It starts in the very, very early days of Point Cook. So you guys have been to or know of Point Cook Homestead? Yep, anyone been there recently? Oh yeah, cool, right. And you've got the wetlands there, you've got the homestead there. So that is haunted, very, very haunted, and we'll talk about that as well at the time. But a fellow died in the 1930s, 1932 actually, February 1932. His name was Stanley Patton, and he died in one of the duck ponds at the Cheetham Salt Flats. Now, Stanley was a proficient hunter. He was going duck shooting. He knew the land, he knew the area, he was reasonably fit from what we can tell. Nobody really knows how a man who knew what he was doing could be found lying face down in a duck pond, which is only 1.5 inches of water, with his gun lying next to him. I won't say it was placed because we don't have the evidence, but that's how it looked. And face down, and he drowned. So that was at least what they said, that he had drowned. That's all we know about Stanley, but we don't know if there was ever any foul play, but we do know that the belief about the Patton family is that there was a curse placed on the family. And I don't know if you guys believe in curses or not. It's all part of the folklore, if you like. But the curse was, marry a Patton woman, you end up dead. That's pretty clear, isn't it? You know, as curses go, that's probably right up there, I think. So, and the reason that came about was actually his, the previous generation, we're talking the 1930s, so we're talking depression, they were out of work, they were trying to earn some money, so they decided, Walter Patton and his 2 sons and his son-in-law James, decided that they would start fishing off Altona Pier. They would catch some fish and they would be able to sell the fish, and his wife opened up a little fish shop, if you like, in front of their house, and they would sell to all the neighbours and they'd bring in a little bit of extra cash. All going well-ish in the Depression, until one day they were out there on the boat and the wind blew up out of nowhere and they were never found again. So a couple of weeks later, a little bit of wreckage came up on Altona Beach, but that's about all. So we've now lost Dad, 2 of the brothers, the son-in-law. The women of the family were left to fend on their own, if you like, and that was very difficult times for them. And then when Stanley decided to go and shoot some ducks in the salt flats to try and feed the family as well, he doesn't come home that night. So that's when word got around. There was plenty of Patton women waiting for a new husband, and they all decided that probably wasn't a good idea. So if you go out to Altona Pier of a night, particularly, I guess you guys have, maybe, it's a really, really beautiful spot. But if you go out in the dark, it does have a certain energy about it. There actually is. And you do feel this sense of you being watched. We've had fishermen who've actually told us, as I said, what part of what we do is gather stories. And they've told us that sometimes they feel like there's 100 pairs of eyes looking up at them from under the water, and they feel quite creeped out about the whole thing. The reason, there are a couple of reasons that spirits remain earthbound. You may have heard this before. Guilt is a very, very heavy energy, and it keeps, you know, it's trapped, if you like, if we look at things energetically in terms of heaviness. Fear is a very, very heavy energy. Unrequited love is another heavy energy. So it's our belief, like at least at Lantern Goes to us, that the spirits of the pattern men are still somewhere around the pier. They are still looking up at through the surface of the water. They are trying to get back to their family. They left the family destitute when they had the accident. Guilt must be in there somewhere. So that is our belief. So go out sometime when it's really dark, go out into the pier and peer. See what you can see. Altona Homestead is haunted by Sarah Langhorne. So the original owners are Sarah and Alfred Langhorne. He came from England, made his money as a drover through Sydney, Melbourne, Adelaide, droving livestock, cattle and sheep. And on one of his trips so he used to go overland to Adelaide, and there's a little place just between, well, just over the South Australian border. I say that, but my geography isn't great either, but anyway, so it's that way somewhere. It's a place called Langhorne Creek. And if you're anything like me, folks, and you love a good Shiraz, just saying. Anyway, they make a really good one there. That's named after Alfred, because that's where he used to basically take the cattle and the sheep through. On his trips to Adelaide, he met a beautiful lady called Sarah. Sarah was only 16 years old, but Alfred was only 23, and by then he had already made his fortune. They married, and they came back to live in Melbourne, at first in the city, and she was quite okay about that. And then he built the Altona property, which she wasn't all that okay about, because at the time there was really nothing around. So if you think about the sort of properties we're talking about, your next door neighbour is Point Cook Homestead, your backyard is Amesbury and Melton. These are massive properties. So she didn't have a lot of contact with people. She couldn't befriend the servants. She couldn't even talk to her own children that much because they're raised by servants. And her husband was away on work quite a lot. So Sarah still peers out the front window of Altona Homestead. And from the front window, you can see straight across the bay. And she is wishing still that she was anywhere but there, because she was just so terribly lonely. So it's haunted by her. The children's bedroom also has spirits. We capture orbs. I don't know if you guys have heard of orbs. They're little, tiny little light pieces of light source of energy. And if you use your flashes on your cameras to capture them, you can see the difference in the light source. So they're not actually part of your flash. We see lots of orbs in the children's bedroom. We do know that Sarah's daughter Alice was laid out there after she died. The toys get moved around in the kids' bedroom. The drawers open and close. There's a bureau in the lounge room that opens, and the drawer opens and closes on its own. There's a little boy in the bedroom who's in the wardrobe who knocks from the inside. And I can verify that one, because I was standing next to a lady one night and I went, "Did you do that?" And she said, "No, I thought you did. We both read for it." And the door opens and closes. So there's a little boy who plays hide and seek with people. He's in the wardrobe. And it is also haunted by a fellow called Henry Croker. So Henry was one of the latter owners after the Langhorns, and he was a powerful man. He was a lawyer. He was quite high up in the Flemington group, in the VRC, Touring Racing Club. And yeah, he moved out there because he loved his horses. and he doesn't really like visitors so much. So we get a good razz out of Henry because he doesn't like us being there. Hey, what can I say? So one night the alarm went off when we were in there, but the alarm had been disarmed. There was another night where the wind blew up again, as I mentioned, out of nowhere, and the guests all had to hang on to the front porch because the wind was so strong. And then as soon as we went away inside, it went away. It was almost like something was trying to blow us away from the front door. I had the keys one night and I was holding onto these things for dear life because I'm responsible for this homestead. I do not want to lose the keys. So I get out of my car and I've got these things like this. I'm walking up to the door and I go to open the homestead door. Nothing, no keys. But I swear, I was hanging on for dear life to these keys. I do the panic. I've lost the keys. I scoured the whole area. I must have dropped them. They were nowhere to be seen. So I went back to my car and I was about to call someone to say, I don't know what to do. I need some help. I've lost the keys. And I found the keys right across the other side of the car park from where my car was, in the far corner, a place where I had never walked. It's like someone had actually thrown the keys the other side of the car park. That one I can't explain, but I am very grateful, Henry. Thank you that I found the keys. Altona's also got a resident on the market, has a resident spirit. We call him Edward the Catman because when he was in life, he lived in a tent out the back of the homestead. And he didn't have any running water, sanitary, he didn't have toilets, he didn't have anything else. So he used to bathe in the sea, catch his fish, bring them back, cook them on his campfire, and he had no less than about 30 feral cats hanging around at any time. The neighbours complained because they didn't like the smell. He was found dead in his tent, naked one day with a few coins on his chest, just enough to pay for a burial. So we do think someone's taken matters into their own hands there with Edward, but he did get his last laugh, if you like, because he's still walking the same path past the market stalls, smelling like a combination of cats, feces, wee, body odour. Do you want me to go on? Fish. Yeah, you're getting it right. So yes, he's still there. If you want to go to market, you might not see him. Clear sentience, you might smell him. Okay. So that's Altona, all good. These are very, very quick stories I'm sharing with you now. Point Cook, I mentioned before, is Point Cook Homestead was the original home of the Churnside family. So you guys know that, you've been there, but you've also probably seen Werribee Mansion. So, and you know the story of how Werribee Mansion got built. So we've got two brothers, we've got Thomas and Andrew Churnside. They come from Scotland. Thomas is described as a burly man, a little bit gruff, but a little bit rough around the edges, but very kind. So the description goes. They were Sabbatarians, so they were strict Christians. And on his way to Australia, Mum gives him a Bible for comfort, and Dad gives him a few £100, which he hid in the Bible for comfort. And Thomas makes his way out here and he realises as a pastoralist there's a lot of money to be made. He calls for his brother Andrew to come. He said, we can really do something here in the colony. This is the place to be. So Andrew comes and joins him and they go back to Scotland quite a bit. There's a bit of backwards and forwards going on. And then Thomas meets Mary Begbie. Now, I shouldn't say meets. He actually already knew her. I don't judge, but she was his first cousin. I think he liked the way she looked. He looked like me, right? But they did that stuff in those days, you know. So he meets Mary and falls in love with her, asks for her hand in marriage. Dad says no, mainly because, lots of reasons, but a couple of reasons would be you live right over the other side of the world. And you live right over the other side of the world with no fixed address because you're just pastoralist stuff. You're doing overlanding stuff and you're moving around all the time. And I want my daughter to have a stable base where she is. Thomas says, yeah, fair enough. I get it. So he comes back and he builds Point Cook Homestead. There was already a homestead on a house on the property, which is now the dairy. If you guys know, there's a little weatherboard cottage on the property. That was the original house. Then he built the bluestone one. Over the years, there's been additions to it as well. But the original one was the bluestone. And he thinks, well, I'm okay. I've got money. I've got a place to be. I'm looking like a good suitor. And so he gets ready to go back to Scotland to convince Mary's dad that she can come and marry him. And at the last minute, some business came up. So he sent Andrew. And his words to Andrew were, bring Mary back by whatever means unnecessary. And Andrew took him verbatim on that. So Andrew was gone about a year by the time it went back. He went back, and he did stuff over there and brought Mary back. And so when they both arrived, Mary had her arm in Andrew, which wasn't unusual because a lady would be accompanied by a man when she's walking, so that wasn't unusual. But then she took her glove off, and Thomas was shocked by what he saw. What do you think he might have seen? A wedding ring. Go on one step better than the engagement ring. So Mary and Andrew had married in Scotland before they left. One of the stories we believe is that Mary's dad said she will not leave here an unmarried woman. That's not, and especially going off with a fellow, that's not okay. One of the other stories is they fell in love in anyway. So you can imagine Thomas. But this is an amazing story of unrequited love, or not that I'm here to spread rumours, but some people think it may not have been unrequited, and she did still fall in love with both brothers. He believed he was in love with her so much, and he loved his brother so much, that he then said, well, if she can't live here at Point Cook, she needs to have a grand home to live in. He built Werribee Mansion for the two of them. Is that not love? That is incredible. So he remained at Point Cook. Mary and Andrew went on to have a family, and unfortunately Thomas, as he got a little bit older, started getting what we believe to be dementia, and he convinced himself that he was penniless, and he felt great shame about that, and so they brought him to live with them in Werribee Mansion. And he shot himself in the laundry at Werribee Mansion. So he took his own life there. They do believe that he haunts still the laundry of Werribee Mansion, and we absolutely believe that he haunts Point Cook as well. The things that have happened there, we've had yes, we've just found Thomas is now walking along the hallways of Point Cook Library. Speaking of walking, does walk. We do hear footsteps along the hallway. And interestingly, one night we heard what we believed to be men's footsteps because they felt quite heavy. And then we had the smell of lavender pass straight after. So when we talk about clairsentience, there's two scents that are quite common. One is smoke, what seems to be tobacco smoke or pipe smoke, and the other is lavender. And ladies of the time used to use lavender as perfume. So we wonder whether there was, I don't know, still a man and a woman, even though it was meant to be a bachelor pad, together at Point Cook at times. One of the rooms is called the smoking room, where the gentlemen would go and they would have cigars and port, and they would have intelligent conversation with each other, because women couldn't get engaged in intelligent conversation. Just saying. So ladies are not welcome in that room. So when we go into that room, you can really feel a sense of, I really feel like I shouldn't be here. We've had chairs move on its own. In the cellar, we've got children who are playing hide and seek, and I did have a whisper in my ear one night, somebody giggling, and the words "can't find me" actually in my ear. The original cottage is haunted by the some of the workers, the groundskeeper, the rabbiter, they used to call him. Didn't like people particularly, still doesn't like people. And the stables of Point Cook Homestead as well are haunted. So they were into their racehorses. They had a Melbourne Cup winner, Harricot, and they had a horse that was bred on the property. When I say bred, it wasn't necessarily thoroughbred. He wasn't bloodstock from England that they were importing. He was just one of the local horses, but he had great talent. His name was Newminster, and he was the winner of the first Caulfield Cup ever run. His stable is there. Now, after when he was showing this promise, they found him one morning, he'd been poisoned. So from that point on, he was on 24-hour guard. They guard his food box, they guard his water. Tommy, the stable boy, slept in the stables and made sure he was okay. And then one morning, again, when they found Newminster poisoned, they went back into the stable, the horse was okay. We found Tommy hanging from the rafters. So he was accused of being involved in the poisoning. He swore his innocence, but what they did say is people said they saw a shady character leaving the day before talking to Tommy. So whether he had been, we don't know, blackmailed, we don't know. But that shady character turned out to be a bookmaker who stood to win quite a lot of money from a fixed race. And he died himself in a lunatic asylum a few years later. The cause of death was suicide, but we have had some mediums that have said the way they've seen him, it was not suicide. So that's the belief of our mediums. So you can feel it in the stables. We talk to the Robs, which I'll show you a little bit later too, to Tommy quite a bit in the stables. Ainsbury Homestead out in Melton, there is a bluestone cottage on the property that when we take the rods in there, they go crazy. So that's really good fun. There's a little boy in there that died with his mother in the cottage, and we keep getting the word from the rods and the mediums keep getting the word hot and fire. So we do believe there may have been a fire there, but we also believe she may have had some sort of fever as well, because he talks about her being hot and she's lying in bed and then fire. So whether something happened and she was too ill to help, I don't know. So we do get, we talk to him quite a bit. How are you going? You still all right? Yeah, cool. How am I going? Am I talking too much? I do that, that's what I do. So Point Cook, Werribee, Altona, we've talked about Ainsbury. Ainsbury is, so as I said, we've got that bluestone cottage out the back, but the homestead is also haunted. Have you guys been there? There's a golf club there, like golf, yeah. And they do, they have a restaurant there as well. It's a lovely, lovely, lovely place. That was owned by the Staunton family originally. And there's the architecture also. The other thing about the tours, which I love just personally too, we do a lot of the history as well. So we talk about the hauntings, but we will talk about the architecture or the history that goes with it. The way it's designed is quite unusual. It's had a couple of wings added onto it that makes it quite different and spectacular in architecture. And it's got what they call a widow's lookout, a tower at the top. Some of those are real and some of them are just ornamental. So this one you can actually get up into. Some of them on houses, they're actually just, yeah, they're just there for show. Why is it called a widow's lookout? I hear you ask.
How is it called?
Oh, glad you asked. Emma is the lady who stands there. We see her there in the lookout. She was one of the maids and she was married to one of the stockmen. And she's waiting for her husband to come home and he didn't. So she remained at the homestead and she still worked as a maid, but she quite often went up there just to have a look. You never know what she could see. She never really gave up looking for him. They did call it that because back in England particularly, the women would wait for the sailors, their husbands, to come home. So they would go up to the lookout. And if their husbands didn't come home, that's how it got known as a widow's lookout. So there's some offices upstairs there, just under the lookout, and the staff will tell you they hear footsteps on the roof. Could be possums, but you know, we'll go with Emma. That's all good. There's children again in the cellar of Amesbury. So we've got children in the cellar at Point Cook, we've got children in the cellar at Amesbury. I'd like to think there's not a pattern emerging here, and that's no pun on the name pattern. I didn't rehearse that at all. So yeah, so there's kids in the cellar again sort of playing hide and seek. But we also think that, or rumour has it, Elizabeth Staunton might have had, you know, another love interest when her husband was away. And so the rumour is that she used to lock the kids up a lot in the cellar when her friend came to visit. All rumour. How can we say that? What we do know about the Stauntons, though, is that her husband died when she was pregnant, and he had just done the will. And suddenly, just a few days, 3 days after he did the will, he dies. And it's unusual for women in those days to have inherited money or property. In this case, this will said that Elizabeth was going to be quite well looked after if he ever died, which he did very soon after. Again, we're not saying there's any foul play there. Who knows? Would be coincidence. So on the baby, Simon's first birthday, she threw this massive party. Now when we're talking 1800s too, we're talking it's okay to do things like Ouija boards. So you might know that Queen Victoria lost her beloved Prince Albert, and she then spent the rest of her life seeking out mediums and spiritualists to try and contact her dead husband and just see if he was okay. That was part of her grieving. So suddenly spiritualists were okay, Ouija boards were okay, all these things that weren't okay. If the Queen could do it, it's all good. So it became quite fashionable. So this party involved gypsies, Ouija boards, we had the gypsy caravans apparently, there were minstrels, there was lots and lots of people. It was huge. It was in the what's now the billiard room, in that area and outside, and everybody at the party was sworn to secrecy of what happened. It went all night, and no one ever spoke of the party other than there was a newspaper article that said it was the best party ever thrown in the whole western area of Melbourne. That's all they said. But what we do know is that there's a lot of spirit remaining in Amesbury. There's some dolls. They've got a doll collection, and the dolls move, you know, dolls, they're creep factor, aren't they? Yeah, really. So they move on their own. They used to have them up in the library. The staff just got so freaked out about these things moving around that most of them are down in the cellar now, and they still move around in the cellar, but the staff only have to go down there occasionally. There is a belief that whatever Elizabeth brought in that night, whatever they did with their Ouija board or other, did actually remain. So there is a definite energy that's still mischievous in Amesbury. Oh, all good. The time, we're good. Are we over time? Like I said, I could talk forever. There's some of the other things that have happened. If I go back to Altona Homestead, I mentioned trying to get in and we couldn't. There is a chair that a face mysteriously appears on. Hold that thought. There is a tea trolley that moves on its own in one direction, and we like to debunk as well. So, you know, we always like to think, and this is how paranormal investigators work, you rule out all the possibilities Is it electrical disturbance? Is it a lean on the floor? Is that what caused the thing to move? So you look at all the things that could have happened, and if you've ruled all those out, all the normal, then you are left with the paranormal. That's kind of our scientific method, if you like. So that night we kind of watched this tea trolley move across, and we thought, yeah, okay, lean on the floor, that can happen. And then it went back the other way. I thought, okay, that's probably paranormal. There's some mannequins in there, done up in the old garb. And again, they're creepy enough on their own too, especially in the dark. So we're in the kitchen one night and there's a mannequin in the corner and the hand came off. Now, if the hand is going to come off, it's going to drop, right? This thing flew across the room and hit the wall on the other side, and it hit the wall, you know, a couple of feet up. So it didn't even, it slid across the floor and went up and hit the wall. It was thrown with great force. When I went to lock up and I had to do a head count, and I thought, oh, it looks like I'm missing someone, and now I have to go back into a homestead on my own. I told you I wasn't brave. So I go back in to find the missing person, and there's this guy in the kitchen, and he's got the hand, and he's like sticking it in, pulling it out, sticking it in, pulling it out. And I said, are you okay? You're right. He goes, he said, look, I'm sorry, I'm an engineer. I've just got to know that that wasn't an accident. He goes, no, he said, I've done the calibration, no way that fell out. So he was happy, skeptic, yes, converted, we love that. Cradle rocks on its own. There's a cradle in the bedroom that rocks on its own. There's a rocking horse that rocks on its own. I think they're the main things. Sometimes people feel a little bit unwell when they go past the bathroom. There was a man in the bathroom in the 1930s who died of a heart attack, and that always has the hissing of water, even though it's been turned off for a long time. And sometimes people feel like a tightness in their chest. They feel a bit unwell when they go in there. That children's bedroom I mentioned earlier, there was a lady who went in there and she just burst into tears and ran out, and I said, are you okay? And she said, look, I've just had a baby. And I went in there and all I could feel was the death of a baby. And it was just too overwhelming for her. We do say to people though, when you're in the homesteads and you're not feeling okay, because this is clairsentience, it can become overwhelming, just go out and you're usually fine. Contrary to public belief, they don't follow you home. Well, actually they do, sometimes. It's all good. Only once it's happened to me, but that's all good. Doesn't happen usually. And what we tend to do is, if you are feeling a little unwell, after whatever that might be, it might be anxiety, it might just be tiredness, it might be frog in your throat, whatever the feeling might be, we've got some sage on hand. We generally debug people before they leave, so it's all okay. But we do say to people, if you are feeling still unwell, in a couple of days, give us a call and we'll talk you through how to clear the energy out of the aura. So, but generally it's pretty good. They're haunted homesteads for a reason, because they stay in the homestead. So as I mentioned, they stay earthbound. The guilt or love, or there's other reasons, they don't tend to follow us home so much. Cool, thank you. The other thing, just in terms of homesteads as well, as I said, why they stay, is we do believe that different elements do connect certain energies, and we do believe that stone, whatever the quality of stone is, you know, crystals. So crystals are charged, and you know they do amazing things. So they're earth. They've come from the earth, born of the earth. So is stone, and we do believe that stone actually holds a lot of the memories of energy. So a lot of the hauntings we have are in homesteads, prisons or asylums, and they were made of stone mostly. So that's what I said. They won't always follow you home. They kind of like to hang around stone. So talking about energies, if you guys seen these ones before? Some have, some haven't. These are what we would call dowsing rods, because you can find water with them. So people talk about being diviners, water diviners. They would use these, or divining rods. So they've got two names. They basically also pick up energy. So they will pick up a ley line, which is an energy channel within the earth, and they will pick up spirit. So we would hold them as still as we possibly can. And what they'll do is look around for a while, see whether they want to talk to you. I don't know if they can see on here, maybe. Oh, look, they want to talk to you. And what they will do is they'll point in the direction of where energy is. And when they finally settle, they do look around for a little while. And we can also use them to communicate. So we might say, sorry.
I was talking to a guy just the other day. He'd been exploring war graves in France with a clairvoyant. He was using a divining rod with a clairvoyant, and they had enormous success. Like
that's fantastic. Yeah. Gentleman just said that he's talking to someone who was looking at war graves in France with a medium and the divining rods, and they had enormous success on the grave. That's awesome to hear. And so we might say, please show me yes, and it might cross the rods. Please show me no, it might do that, whatever it wants to do. And so we know we can ask questions, and the yes, no questions, and we can find out more about that spirit. So we use it to communicate, and we use it to find spirit. It's a course, you've probably all seen this one before. The Ouija board, homemade, gorgeous. They work just as well, trust me. This is what we call a planchette, and it will spell out words, or it will go yes, no, it'll give you numbers. And it needs at least 2 people, 3 people works really well. And again, it's that concentration of psychic energy, and it can allow the spirit to spell out the words for you. So we use these in the paranormal investigations. And I'm happy for you guys to look at these later too if you want. This is what we call an EMF, which is an electromagnetic frequency meter. There's a version of this called a K2. So there's lots of handheld stuff that you can get when you're doing your paranormal investigations. Basically what this will do is find electromagnetic frequency, what we would call aura in the spirit world. It will also tell you if you're going to get a text on your phone. So that's really handy too. But so we do say if you're doing paranormal investigations, turn your phones off, and then you know you're talking to a spirit. So it will do that and light up. You can also ask it, we could say to the spirit, could you please flash twice for yes, flash once for no, and we can communicate through it that way as well. Spirit will use electronic gadgets. Even teddy bears with electronic gadgets and cameras in them, they find there's some connection to the energy of the electronics that helps. I do often say to people to check your phone at the start of the tour, watch your percentage battery, check it at the end. It's incredible how it drains, because they will look for gadgets where they can drain the energy so that they can manifest the ability to move. They use electronic energy to do that. All right, so watch my photos. Yes. So just got a few photos for you guys, just of some of the things that we've talked about. That is actually, that's Point Book Homestead, and that's 2 guests one night. We do, as well as the tours, we do what we call spirit workshops. So it's kind of more interactive. You can tell your own stories, and we let you have a little bit of play with the equipment, which we do mostly anyway. But it's more about learning. your own stories and sharing. So on this one night, these two ladies actually had one of the ghost meters and they were talking to a spirit at the front door. And I grabbed the photo because I just thought it was a nice photo. I thought it was good. This is the window that Sarah likes to stare outside at the Altona homestead. And I've actually given you a photo of the piano there. Unfortunately, I did have a photo of a spirit playing the piano one night and I cannot find it. I do apologise. This is the other weird thing that happens with ghosts and photos. You can take the picture and it looks like nothing. You look at it a week or a month later, it's got something in it, strangely appears or strangely disappears. You don't find the photo again. So strange things really happen around that. But we did have an apparition there one night. I mentioned the chair. This is the old mayoral chair. The council used to meet there a few years ago at Altona Homestead, and we did actually have a face appear in the chair one night in a photo. What do you think of that one? And this one, this is where we start kind of we start debunking sort of thing. There's nothing in the mirror. Bit hard to see. That's the table. That's the edge of the table there. So you would see something in the mirror in the corner. So there is actually nothing reflecting there. And it's not the light source either. It's a humanoid shape. So I do really quite like that one. That's Altona. That's the bedroom. That bed vibrates as well when you touch it. Just vibrates on its own. And that's the corner where the cradle was moving on its own. So I don't know if that's the energy that was moving the cradle.
Is there two things?
Oh, sorry.
Is there two things there? Like, what's that? The white? And
This one? Yeah, it's the white one.
And then there's a head.
Apparition.
There.
This one. That's actually just a strange angle. It's actually one of those bed warmers. It's not meant to have a face on it, but I'll go with paranormal on that.
Like a child's face.
Yeah, it does look like a face. It's just a strange angle of that one. I don't know what. Yeah. That's the stables at Point Cook. So this is the part where we do the paranormal investigations through that door, and the stables, the horse boxes are on that part of it over there. Now this is the church-size, just if you're interested, are buried at Eastern Cemetery in Geelong. They've got the whole family monument there. So Thomas and Mary are there, Andrew's there, next generation are there. As we say, together again. I don't know. Yeah, that's actually video, Tina. Sorry, I don't know if we can play that or not. Sorry, I should have mentioned that. If not, that's fine. Yeah, so I just want to show you what orbs look like. Orbs can be any colour. They are often white or blue or green. It's probably the most common. And again, you look for the source. So is that a reflection or is it not? And if you can rule out all that, then we call it an orb. This one, I was actually able to capture on video. So we say to people, if you see an orb, and you will only see them through your camera, you can't see them with the naked eye. If you see one, flick over to video straight away, especially if it's moving, because you will capture it on video. We've had them coming straight at us too, which is a bit scary. What else have I got? Oh, here we go. No, I've got it. Sorry. See it moving there? You see the little orb dancing?
Oh, yeah, there's another one.
Okay.
There's a
Yeah.
third one.
This one here.
Yeah. I think there's one in the window.
I don't know if we can see that again. Yeah, there it is. So yeah, they're not connected to any other light source. You can see the movement, which is right. So we've got, I'm just going to read you just quickly, some information from Dr. Steve Campbell-Wright. He's a historian and heritage consultant. He served in the RAF for over 35 years and he documented experiences of paranormal activity at the airbase over the years. He's kindly written this out for us. Point Cook has a reputation of being the most haunted aviation site in Australia. Normally fearless firemen have been spooked by the banging and rattling sounds in their hangar located near the air traffic control tower. The tower is on the site of the World War II tower, from which a United States airman is reputed to have hanged himself. There's the tower. According to Sergeant Dusty Miller, the footsteps of a ghost affectionately known as George have been heard, and he is known to have closed doors and rattled cups, causing at least one young fireman to refuse to stay overnight on the duty shift. Miller also claimed that a figure dressed in a modern flying suit could be strolling on the edge of the airfield in the central tarmac area near the site of the 1983 Porter crash, and several of us have seen him walking past our hut. Miller sighted him firsthand in 1989 while looking out the window when having a shower around midnight, saying he walked around 15 paces and then disappeared. Reports have been made of a figure dressed in a long World War I flying coat being seen near the edge of the airfield from the southern tarmac area. Walking and jogging around the perimeter of the airfield was a common walk to keep fit, and one early evening walker saw the figure standing there in 1992. Being a lone female, she decided not to pass him, and before she turned to walk back to the married quarter area, he disappeared. A guard on security patrol had the same experience. The old museum and the armament school, dating back to World War II, is the site with the most numerous ghost stories. Museum staff members have many stories of lights and heaters being turned on or off after security alarms have been set and items being moved, including a heavy weapons storage case. A display of a recreation of Sir Richard Williams' study drew many reports with it being tidied up after dusting or books were physically returned and being temporarily taken for research. The display, containing many items of historic significance, was protected by a perspex screen that needed to be partially dismantled to gain access, but somebody did. The Central Research and Staff Rest Hut had more than its fair share of strange occurrences. Retired Army Warrant Officer Class 2 Jock Smith was a museum volunteer and not known for his humour. One day in the early 1990s, he saw a figure walk through the wall, pause and face him, then continue walking through the opposite wall. His anger at not being believed by others working there when he told them was so great that they thought they might have to call an ambulance for fear of him having a heart attack. He never returned to the museum again. Similarly, 2 female officer cadets who had elected to be discharged early in their training had been attached to the museum awaiting discharge, as was common practice, and were working in the Central Research Hut when a blood-curdling scream from one of them brought staff running. After many minutes of consoling by the other, she was finally had to explain that she had been rubbed up against by a figure walking through the room. There was an exorcism of sorts conducted at the Lucas House in August 1998. After operating as 2 flats for 40 years, it was converted back into a single residence to accommodate a large family. Unfounded rumours had circulated that Air Commodore Reed, who lived next door, had noticed the ghost of a young girl in the upstairs master bedroom and on the adjoining sun deck. The girl even had a name and was reputed to have been 6-year-old Estelle, who died in the house in the late 1950s or early 1960s. While not proved to have occurred, the fact that Group Captain Roy King had died in the room was blissfully unknown. The family residing in the house at the time called upon Chaplain Jim Curtin to bless the upstairs room to quiet the noises heard by the woman of the house. That was very kindly from Steve Campbell-Wright. There's the laundry at Werribee Mansion, and there we are. leave it at that.
Thank you, Lisa. We have some. Time for questions. So if you have a question, just put your hand up and I'll come round with the mic. Are there any questions for Lisa? Yes.
Question about what you call it, but when you smell, sense something.
Clear sentience,
Yeah,
that's when you smell something, yeah.
Oh, you're overshare, but there's a strong smell in my mum's house.
Yep.
And my father's been passed away many years ago, and he was a heavy smoker. And we always smell like tobacco in one particular area of the kitchen. Yep. Just wondered if we do smell that, should we try and talk, like, do you have any, like, I don't know, suggestions on, like, should we try and engage, like, how do we engage to you know, like, if it is a spirit, like, you know, should we try and talk, like, what can we say?
Yep. So if you're in the house and you detect one of those smells, and tobacco is one of the common ones, and you may believe that that's your dad, or it could be another spirit actually, because it is a common smell. And the question being, what should we do? Should we try and contact? I would absolutely say to you, you do what you feel is right in your heart. So it could be that the spirit is just showing its presence, letting you know they're there, and that's comfort. Or if you feel there's a message, you could try and do that. If you feel it's a presence that needs to move on, you could do that. But that's the advice I would give. You can, if you want, as an experiment, just before you go to sleep, when you're in that half-conscious state, you could say to the spirit, if you have a message, tell me in my dream or in my mind, and then when you wake up, write it down, whatever it is. And there might be something they're going to tell you. If nothing, then I'd say they're just there giving you comfort.
Thank you. Any other questions? Yes, okay.
I was just remaining a skeptic. I was just wondering, is there any logic to how powerful a spirit can be, what they can do, or is it their choice? For example, sometimes you mentioned a child spirit moves things, and sometimes they are just appearing just a little bit like an apparition. So is it their choice or a certain reason how powerful they are or what they're capable? What do you think?
So how powerful the spirit is, how they manifest, how capable they are, we believe it's available resources to them. So if there's an energy source that they can use, like your battery on your phone, it's easier for them to manifest, or they can move things. It's also the reason that they're earthbound, can give them an energy source. That's our belief. That's about really, I think it gets down to what you believe, I think, and the evidence or the logic around that is we can see the power source. We can see the lights flicker. We can see the lights go off. We can see the batteries draining. So that they're the things that we can detect. Also in terms of the behaviour of the spirit, I found is the same as in life. So children will be mischievous and playful, and adults will be not so much. They might knock something over to get your attention, but it won't keep knocking over. It won't keep poking you in the back. You could say that's the children's spirit. We also do believe the children's spirits are a little bit weaker. So if it's trying to communicate, I often think it may be a child. But that's our belief. Is that helpful?
Thank you. Any other questions? Yes.
Look, I have a little puppy at home, and he's just adorable, but he stops in the lounge room and he barks.
Yep.
He's looking at something. We cannot see it, but he can.
Yes.
We'll try to calm him down, and he'll come out and he'll come back and he'll put on his big dog image, like to scare. And I wonder if he can see something that we can't.
Yeah, so when we believe animals are very sensitive. Animals don't have the social constructs or the shame or the logical brain in us that says, well, that's probably something I can explain away. Animals are just pure acceptance, experience and response. So we do believe if you've got a dog that's barking at something in the corner and you can't see it, we believe there will be something there. Yeah. It may not necessarily be a bad thing. He's just, I would believe he's seen something. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you. Kirsty, was there any questions up the front?
Yes, we do have a couple of questions and sightings from home. So let me just scroll back up in the comments here.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. So Anonymous has asked, do you know anything about 24 Boland Road in Werribee? It's an old bluestone house dating back to the 1880s. And they've also said it's a great presentation.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, but no, I don't know too much about that one. But that sounds like something I would like to find out about.
I hear it's haunted.
You do hear it's haunted? Yeah. Do you know if it's haunted by?
No, I don't know much about it, but it's quite an interesting sort of stone house that I have heard. The energies aren't really great in there.
Yeah. 24 Boland Road, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, right, Ron, who's coming?
Investigation. We've also got a question about the buildings on the Williamstown waterfront. And it's presumed it would have been a really rough area at night, and they're wondering if there are any known hauntings in that area.
Yep, so Stan Packet Hotel, so they're asking are there any hauntings in the waterfront, Williamstown waterfront area. Stan Packet Hotel is haunted. It was used as a morgue in the cellar, well the pubs were in the day. And there's one of the apartments upstairs. Anyone live upstairs at the Stan Packet Hotel? All right, just checking. Apartment number 1, no. Do we believe there's an apartment upstairs that's haunted? The what do you call it? The water fountain, actually, in Williamstown on the foreshore there is haunted. If you can believe it. In the middle of the night, it kind of sprays water, but it's been disconnected for a long, long time. There were originally 44 pubs in that slight strip there, in that first part of Nelson Place. And I don't even think there's 44 shops. So there must have been at least 5 or 6 pubs in different rooms. But where you had pubs, you had ladies of the night, you had sailors, lots and lots of stories of from there. There was further down near the docks area. There's the Titanic restaurant around that kind of way. There's some lavender ladies, we call them. They were prostitutes that used to hang around the hotels down there. And yeah, we hear and see and smell them. So yes, plenty of stories around Williamstown for sure. It's an old seaport, why not?
Thank you. We've also had people who have been on the tours of Altona Homestead and have felt and seen the ghosts you were talking about.
Yep.
And someone was asking about ghosts in Werribee. And I mentioned we had some reports from Werribee Library.
The library,
Do you know more that you can tell us?
So we've heard about the library, Werribee Mansion, of course, but I think those guys do their tours there. So certainly the laundry, as you mentioned. That's probably mostly what I know of Werribee, but I do think there's another untapped one, so we will definitely be looking into that. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
That's right. Welcome.
Well, thank you so much, Lisa. It's been an absolute pleasure having you here this evening, and I'm sure you can agree it's been a fantastic presentation. I'm sure you've learned lots, and thank you so much. And thank you everyone for coming. So please give a round of applause. So before you go, we have some great events coming up in the libraries. So you have a What's On booklet there. And if you could please fill out the feedback form, we would appreciate your feedback on any of our events. Thank you again, and we look forward to seeing you again. Good evening and good night. Thank you.
Thank you.